Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel UFO World. My name is Laszlo and I'm your host. Today I had the pleasure of speaking to Tom Carey, who is a former US Air Force veteran who once held top secret clearance. He has spent the last 30 years investigating the Roswell incident and has worked with established key personnel such as Don Schmitt. He has written 10 plus books on this and has been a key contributor in trying to get into the truth, which has probably been the worst kept secret in history when it comes to the Roswell case. Today we have a great conversation. We discuss how we got into the case, the UFO testimonies for the Roswell incident, how Tom's perception on the UFO phenomena has transformed over the years, moving from a physical into the consciousness, interdimensional aspects, and what witness testimonies are in connection with this, and what Tom's extra projects are, the Arrow Report, and the current UFO movement. It's a really cool conversation today, and Tom has contributed a lot to this space, so do check out his work and what he's been doing over the years. I'll leave a link to the description and all of that. And as always, if you do like today's video, do hit the like button and subscribe for future content. It really helps out the channel. With that being said, I hope you like today's video. Let's dive in. Hey Tom, how you doing today?
All right, Laszlo, great to meet you finally. We talked earlier setting this meeting up, and it's so nice to meet you in person, almost.
Likewise. Likewise. Yeah, exactly. Virtual. Well, this is the way things are done these days, right? It's great though,
Yeah,
right? We can have this conversation. You're other side of the world. I'm over here. Technology, right? It's fantastic.
thousands of miles apart.
It might be alien technology. Maybe we can we can go into that.
Right.
But look, listen, yeah, look, really great to have you on board. Big fan of your work. You've done some incredible work over the years, in particular around the kind of Roswell case, and you've been a big advocate for the UFO topic in general. So yeah, really appreciate you coming on board. I guess to kind of just get started for the audiences who might not be fully aware of kind of who you are and in particular how you got into the UFO subject, Tom. What happened with that? What kind of grasps you into it?
Yes, I became interested in UFOs, or back then they called them flying saucers, in the 1950s. For some reason, it struck a chord with me. Something about aliens, beings from another world. And there were a few movies out then. Was The Day the Earth Stood Still with Michael Rennie.
Hmm.
And my all-time favorite movie, The Thing from Another World,
Yeah.
starring Kenneth Tobey and James Arness from Gunsmoke, who was the Thing. So those movies got me interested in what is this flying saucer stuff. And there weren't that many books back then about it, and did read one about 1960. I was just a little kid, but my older brother was in a book club that featured a book called "The Report on Unidentified Flying Objects" by the former head of Project Blue Book, Edward. Oh my goodness, Edward Ruppelt.
Hmm.
And I read that book, and wow, this is really interesting stuff. So that's what got me interested in UFOs in general. Roswell never came up until later on, but my favorite author, say in the 1950s, early 1960s, was a fellow by the name of Major. Oh, here we go again. I'm forgetting names. Major. That is terrible. He was a former major in the Marines, and he was the head guy trying to get government hearings on UFOs. Uh, this is terrible. I should have. I should have. I can't remember the fellow's name now, but Major. I want to say Jesse Marcel, but it wasn't Jesse Marcel. It was. That's terrible. It'll come to me
It'll
afterward.
come to you. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It'll flow
After
back
the
into you.
interview is over, it will come to me. And he was a good author too. He wrote several books which I really liked. So that was about it. UFOs in general. The topic was mildly interesting to the general public, but nothing big like it is now. So I go off to college, got a bachelor's degree and a master's degree, and I was going for a doctorate in anthropology when I heard about somebody. I had joined a local UFO group by this time. Even though I was in graduate school, I was still interested in the subject, and I joined a local UFO group. And one of the meetings, somebody brought up hey, they're making so and so's doing a book on Roswell, the Roswell. I said, Roswell, what's that? I thought they were talking about the city of Roseville in California, which was near Sacramento, where I had been living at the time for about 10 years. They must be talking about Roseville. No, it's Roswell, New Mexico. Never heard of it. So that's 1980. And I'm sorry, that's 1978. So in 1980, this book comes out called The Roswell Incident by William Moore and a fellow by the name of Charles Berlitz, who was a language expert. He wrote books on how to speak this language, that language, etc., etc. But the real research was William Moore and Stanton Friedman. Stanton Friedman had been going around the country doing his UFOs are real talk. I mean, he made a living on that. UFOs are real. Well, he got in touch on somebody's advice with a fellow by the name of Jesse Marcel, who was a intelligence officer in 1947 back at this air base in Roswell, New Mexico, the 509th Bomb Group. He was the group's intelligence officer, and his story was that back in 1947, he had handled pieces of a flying saucer. Wow. So Stanton Friedman called him up and became sufficiently impressed with him. So he contacted a local friend named William Moore, who had just had a fairly big selling book called The Philadelphia Experiment, which was about a World War II destroyer, allegedly, in the Philadelphia Naval Yard that became invisible. They made it invisible and did some time traveling with it as a real complicated story, but that was a big seller.
Mm.
So he contacted William Moore, and they hooked up to investigate the Roswell incident from 1947. So by 1980, they had enough witnesses that they could write a book. But Stanton Friedman was not known. He didn't have any books out at that time. So this fellow, Charles Berlitz, had just had a big seller on the Bermuda Triangle, had a big book seller on the Bermuda Triangle. Let's get William Moore and Charles Berlitz to hook up. So they hooked up. So that's why their names appear on the Roswell Incident book. I
Mm-hmm.
read it in 1980 and was blown away. Talking about not lights in the sky, which up till that point, that's basically what UFOs were. They started out in World War II as being the
Yeah.
Foo
Mm-hmm.
Fighters, and they continued on. And so in the late 1940s, this fella whose name I can't remember now, he had written a couple books, UFOs from flying saucers from outer space. They still called them flying saucers back then. Flying saucers from outer space, flying saucers are real, the flying saucer conspiracy, books like that. Very interesting. But this book, The Roswell Incident in 1980, was about a crash of a physical saucer, had bodies. One was still alive. There was a government cover up. It had everything that a good mystery had. Plus, we're talking about physical evidence, not lights in the sky again.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I mean, you can only do so much with lights in the sky.
This is
Oh
true.
boy, it went that way and it went that. Oh boy, tell me more.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So this book blew me away, and all the other stories about flying saucers and UFOs for me fell into the background. It was just one case that I just was really interested in. Well, 10 years go by. It's now 19, let's see, 1990, 1991. No more books on Roswell, just that one. Well, I had joined a group that had a monthly newsletter called the Center for UFO Studies, QFOS, out of Chicago. They had these two fellas, Don Schmitt and Kevin Randall, were reopening the Roswell investigation. This is now 1990, 10 years after the other book with nothing, you know.
Hmm.
So they were writing update articles in this International UFO Reporter that the QFOS organization regularly published. And I couldn't wait to read this, what they were doing about Roswell. And the story of Roswell also included, as one aspect of it, that the ship that crashed was discovered by a group of archaeologists from the University of Pennsylvania in Philadelphia. Well, here I am just living right outside of Philadelphia. So I called up Kevin Randall. I said, "Hey, Kevin, my degree, I have a degree, a master's degree. Went for a doctorate in anthropology. Archaeology is part of that. What have you done about the archaeologists, finding them?" He said, "Well, we interviewed a couple of them, not many, but nobody knew anything." I said, "Well, look, they were allegedly from the University of Pennsylvania in Philadelphia. I can go into my degrees are in anthropology, archaeology. Let me go down to the University of Pennsylvania in Philadelphia, see what I can see, try to find something about the archaeologists." So that's how I became involved in the investigation, by trying to find the archaeologists who discovered the craft when the day after it crashed.
Mm-mm.
And to make a long story short, they weren't from the University of Pennsylvania. They were from Texas Tech in Lubbock, Texas. So
Shock.
I was able to find them, and that's how I became involved, was trying to find the archaeologists
So,
that discovered the craft.
right, right,
So
right.
this, so Kevin Randall and Don Schmitt, they wrote a book in 1991, which really became the bigger seller than the original 1980 book. This book, UFO Crash at Roswell, 1991, became the great uh, door opener for a lot of people. It was a big seller. They had many more witnesses on the record than the first book, the 1980 book. And in my opinion, it was the second, well, I could say at the time, the most important book about Roswell was that 1991 book. I joined the team at that point, Randall and Schmitt, and it became Randall and Schmitt and Carey. And I've been on that case ever since 1991. It's now 2024. That means I've been on the case for 33 years,
It's crazy.
Laszlo.
Yeah,
That's a lifetime to a lot lot of people. So that's how I became involved, was
super.
looking for the archaeologists. Yes.
Okay, good. Well, look, listen, testament to you, right? You saw something there. There's always a book or something that kind of captivates individuals, right? For me, it was Zachariah Stitchin. When I looked into the ancient history, I read all of those books, and I was like, "What is this?" I mean, I've had my own experiences as well, which
Yeah.
story for another day. But to start reading about that was something I was like, it opened that door of curiosity, and then you start going through those doors, and you're like, "Wow, wow, there's something here."
As uh, as I sit here in my home office, Laszlo, uh, Don Schmitt and I have written, and we have co-authored 11 books on the Roswell incident. 11 books that we have written to date. the last one coming out in 2022, the Witness to Roswell, the 75th anniversary edition.
Mm.
And we believe that we also have interviewed up to 600
Wow.
witnesses,
Wow.
first and second hand witnesses who had a little piece of the story. They only, they had their little piece of the story. It was our job to put it together into a workable framework that answered most of the questions about the
Hmm.
case. So, based on up to 600 first and second hand witnesses, we have published 11. I lose count, Laszlo. It's either 10 or 11
Double
books.
figures. It's double figures. That's the
Yeah.
main thing. I know you've well, I appreciate the overview there, and I know you're working on some new stuff as well, which we can jump into. Just I guess for your just for the audience sake as well, and I'm curious myself. What do you think is the smoking gun for you, or what do you think is the most credible piece
Oh,
or witness even?
good question. It's hard to pick out one key witness, but there's about five key witnesses. Okay, and the first one that always comes up for me is the Major Edwin Easley. He was the provost marshal at the Roswell Air Base. Now, the 509th Bomb Group, Laszlo, I don't know if your viewers know, but that was the group that ended World War II
Mm.
by dropping 2 atomic bombs on Japan. Was the 509th Bomb Group. After the war, they relocated to Roswell. And the provost marshal on the Roswell base was a Major Edwin Easley. Well, early on, this is even before I joined the Randall Schmitt team. Kevin Randall had, because most of your witnesses were still alive back in the late 1980s, early 1990s. They were still alive. They're all dead now. As we
Mm,
sit
mm.
here, they're all dead. But in 1989, 1990, Kevin Randall interviewed Edwin Easley. He was retired, of course, at the time. And to every question that Kevin answered uh, easily, would say, "I'm sorry, I can't answer that. I've been sworn to secrecy." Uh, what about this? Well, I'm sorry, I'm sworn to secrecy. So, I mean, for me, that would that's very frustrating. So
Mhm.
so Kevin saw that he was getting nowhere with this, so he just threw out a frustrated final question. Oh, can you, Lieutenant? He was in retirement. He was Lieutenant Colonel. Colonel, can you at least tell us if we're going in the right direction on this? And there's a long pause, and finally, he easily says, "Well, let me put it this way: you're not going." And he said, "Oh," he says, and what direction is that?" And so Kevin says, "Well, that what crashed was a flying saucer, a UFO flying saucer." So there's
Wow.
another long pause, and Easley says, "Well, let me put it to you this way: you're not going in the wrong direction." And that was all he would say.
Mm.
And to the team at that time, because they weren't sure whether it was what it was, well, maybe it was a weather balloon, right? But Easley said no, it was a flying saucer that had crashed. But just by saying you're not in the wrong direction. So for me, that's the key witness because it set the whole trajectory for our investigation.
Wow.
There are others who filled in great gaps in the story, and it's very hard to pick out one. But for me, Easley was the most important.
Easily. Okay, good. Yeah, I mean, it's the first thing that comes to my mind is that when you hear people who've had that background in terms of what he's done and where he was within the government as well, and he's
Yes,
saying things
he
like
was
that.
the for the there goes my phone. It doesn't ring unless I'm doing an interview. Um, Easley was the provost marshal. He was in charge of all of the military police on the base.
It's
There was
crazy. Yeah.
over 100 of them. So it was the MPs, as they called them. There were three sites in this case that we have discovered. The MPs would encircle each site so nobody could get past them. They would encircle each site so nobody other than the people that they wanted to come and examine and retrieve the stuff uh, could get to the actual object itself. So he was the head of that.
Mm,
So he knew a lot, and what he did is he said that we were going in the right direction. Now, on his deathbed, he also gave a deathbed statement. I
mm,
mean, literally, he's on his deathbed at Parkland Memorial Hospital in Dallas, Texas, which is where uh, when John Kennedy was assassinated, they took him to Parkland. But so Easley's on his deathbed, and in comes his daughter and his granddaughter to visit him. The guy's dying, right? And the granddaughter brings up the Kevin Randall Don Schmitt book, UFO Crash at Roswell. So the granddaughter walks up to Easley, who's laying there, and she says, "Do you remember what about this, Grandpa?" And he goes, "Oh, the creatures." He said, "Oh, the creatures." So then he apologized to his daughter and granddaughter. "I'm sorry, I never said anything about it. I should have told you about what happened back in 1947. But I promised the president, President Harry Truman, that he wouldn't talk about it." And that doesn't mean he actually face to face promised Truman, but he promised one of Truman's emissaries who went to Roswell to see what was going on. And the emissary told him, "Don't ever talk about this." And so Easley said, "Okay." But on his deathbed, he said, "Oh, the creatures," meaning there were bodies recovered and that it was a UFO and that he was sorry he never was able to tell his family about it
mm.
until he was on his deathbed. So that's
Yeah,
the number one witness
number
in
one.
my book.
It's a it's a credible witness. It's a good witness, right? And he held up. He's part of the deal, and you can understand why, right? He's sworn to
Yeah.
secrecy, but he gave you a little hint in the right direction anyway.
He gave us the roadmap that it was a UFO, that there were bodies,
Mm,
not
mm,
just wreckage, but bodies, and that he did know about it, but he had promised President Truman that he would never talk about it, which he never did until his what I just mentioned to you. So this is he passed away 1991 or 92, early 90s.
okay, all right, cool. So you're just another point as well, because I was just going to say before I go into that as well. I think all the stuff you've been doing as well with the other chaps. There, this is all going to be like because it's the worst kept secret, really. um, it's all going to be looked back on, and I'm sure this work has already come forward, and it's put a lot of open up a lot of people's perception on kind of what really went on, because a lot of effort has gone into it. There's a lot of testimonies, and like what you just mentioned right now, that person was very high level, and those are the words he said, and then what he said as well on his deathbed as well. So I think it's quite profound in regards to yourself so far, in regards to what's happened and the movement within the UFO side of things. I wanted to know, all the research you've done, has your perception changed on the UFO topic at all? Because the UFO crash itself was quite physical, right? That's what the whole thing is. And I was once a big believer about that as well. I didn't think of any kind of consciousness elements, but now there's stuff coming forward about the interdimension connection, the consciousness
Yes.
connection, and all these different things. So, how's your perception changed? What are your kind of thoughts on the phenomena?
That's exactly how my thoughts have changed. I always considered Roswell and the UFO phenomena, which is multifaceted, but the say flying saucers. Well, we're extraterrestrial. We're extraterrestrial from another planet somewhere in the galaxy, something like that. Well, two of the witnesses two of the most recent witnesses have changed my mind about that. Uh, One was the son of a German paperclip uh, physicist engineer that came over in 1945, named Ernst Steinhoff. He was second in command of these paperclip Germans. The leader was Werner von Braun, of course, but Steinhoff was second in command, and we got a lead that we should interview his sons. He had two sons. Steinhoff himself had passed away. So I interviewed the older son. This is now maybe 5, 6 years ago. And I interviewed the older one. Oh no, he never said anything about that. Oh, I don't know anything about Roswell. Like, now this. I mean, these two sons are they're fairly smart themselves, and oh, he never said anything. I said, oh my goodness, this. So I went to the second son, the younger one. Then he started on the. Oh no, I'm a doctor, but no, Dad never. Oh, he never mentioned about. Oh, geez, they're lying through their teeth.
Yeah.
So I'm just about to hang up, and the younger son, he says, "Oh, by the way, what was the mass to weight ratio of that flying saucer?" I'm thinking, this guy's like a medical, and he doesn't know anything, but he wants to know what the mass to weight ratio is. Where did that come from? And he says, "Oh, by the way, it wasn't extraterrestrial; it was extra dimensional."
Wow.
Wait a minute. How does he? If he doesn't know any, how does he know this?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
his father was involved in the analysis of the wreckage, and the father was also involved. He was also his main focus of why he was stationed at Alamogordo in New Mexico. He was in they were developing jet propelled missiles, not the ballistic rocket, but the jet propelled ones, the Snark and the Beaumark and those sorts of
Hmm.
things, cruise missiles. That he was involved in that, but he was also involved in the Roswell case, and he knew everything about it. And the two saw, oh, he don't know anything. Well, how did he come up with those questions? And then
Mm.
the statement that it wasn't extra. How would he know that?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, where do you think he got it? So that
Yeah.
was the first witness that said, "Uh-oh, it wasn't extraterrestrial. It was extra dimensional." Well, there was a second one.
Maybe he was giving you a little hint as well, giving you a bit of rope just to pull onto as well, just to mention that, right? He couldn't say anything, but it was like, let me ask this though, or put this out there.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, and I'm thinking, I remember at the time I said, extra dimensional. Where did he
Yeah.
get that? I mean, he
Yeah.
claims not to know any of that. So I hung up, and that was now that was the seed planted in my brain on
Mm.
this. A second witness was a naval commander. Believe it or not, was on the team of Werner von Braun's team, developing uh, who this naval officer by the name of George Hoover. He was a commanding commander. He was the naval or the Navy's go-to guy when it came to UFOs.
Wow.
He was like
Okay.
the go-to guy for UFOs in regarding the Navy. And he was a good friend of von Braun, and he was on von Braun's team. He was at the big CIA meeting in January of uh, 1953, the Robertson Committee. So he was interviewed by a friend of mine named Bill Burns, who had his own TV show, the UFO Hunters or something like that. And Bill was on the West Coast. This is in the mid 1990s for another project. It had nothing to do with the UFOs, and he interviewed this George Hoover for this project, whatever. I don't know what the project was, but they got to talking about Roswell. And so Hoover said, well, Roswell was the crash of a craft with bodies from somewhere else. Well, we know that. It was from somewhere else. We know that. He says, no, no, no. It wasn't extraterrestrial. It was extra temporal. That's the word he used. It was
Temporal.
extra temporal, and it may have been us from the future. He
Wow.
even added that.
Yeah.
He
Wow.
said it was extra temporal. Perhaps it was even us from a future Earth. And so, if anybody asks me today, because these were not Uncle Harry over a light beer. Uh, these were people involved. They were involved in this subject, and they both came to the same conclusion. So if anybody asks me where were they from, or I would have to defer to those two gentlemen that they were time travelers of some sort. But when they crashed, they were in what they call the corporeal state, the physical state.
Mm.
When it exploded and crashed, they were in the physical state, which apparently they can go in and out of. I don't, Laszlo, I don't understand. That stuff is way over my head.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
but
Yeah. Yeah.
that's what it suggests to me.
Mm, yeah. I mean, it's as I said before, I went through a similar trajectory when I heard about. I just thought it was a physical thing, and the more you look into it, and then I'm hearing stories like this as well. I mean, it would make sense, right, in terms of how they travel as well, how they're able to manipulate people's perceptions and appear a particular way as well. There's a lot of
There's
stuff that coming
there's
forward.
there's nothing they can't do. That's
Yeah.
that's that's the way I look at it. There's nothing they can't do.
Have you seen Three Body Problem on
I'm
Netflix?
sorry. I'm sorry.
Three Body Problem. It's a TV show. It came out recently. It's based on some books, and
Oh,
it discusses. Let's say it's. I don't want to spoil it, but it touches on some of those aspects as well. It's really cool. Um, but yeah, I mean, I was going to say as well the whole interdimension stuff. It's
I never put any stock in it. I always thought there was a physical extraterrestrial, another, but somehow they were able to shrink time and space somehow. I didn't know
mm,
how they do it or did it, but that because the distances in the universe are too great
yeah, yeah,
to
yeah.
travel as we know it. So they had to somehow be able to jump either time or space or both. I don't know how they do it, but but if someone said, "Okay, where do you think they came from, or how did they get here?" I was just they were time travelers of some sort. I don't know how they do it, but that's what it is.
There, there's a theory around the whole time traveling stuff as well, or them being us from the future as well. And I mean, if that's that particular alien race and there's multiple, then that could be their objective as well, how they do it. And also, I think if they were going to go by the usual physical means of, I don't know, some sort of, it wouldn't be a propulsion system, but however they were to travel here, they wouldn't travel all this way just to fly around in the sky, flash their lights, and then zoom off. Right? It wouldn't be a really, it wouldn't be a time effective way of their time to be going and doing that stuff. So I think they obviously have something advanced. I mean, I've the consciousness connection as well. That's what the Kona Blue document touched on as well. It kind of said that how they use consciousness to like interact with the technology, and they were exploring that whole
This,
kind of.
one of the witnesses. This would be one of the key witnesses. Laszlo was a fireman, a Roswell city fireman named Dan Dwyer. The city fire department had been warned not to go out to the site
Mm,
because that the local air base fire department would take care of it, not the city, but the air base. Well, that was enough for Dan Dwyer. He says, "I'm getting out there because this sounds really good." So he got out to the site before anybody else, any other official person. The city fire department didn't go out, but he snuck out there on his own. Took his own vehicle, got out there, and he got there before the military, before the sheriff, before there were I guess a few ranchers, local ranchers that heard the crash who got, but Dan Dwyer got out there and he said, my focus was on these two beings, very small with big heads that were lying close to the what was left of the ship, but they were dead. They were on the ground dead. And but I was focused on the ship and these two little beings that were lying half in the ship and half out. And so I'm walking towards that, and I see movement out of my peripheral vision on my right. I see there's movement out there. So he looks over there, and there's a third alien alive, walking around. A creature from another world survived the crash.
Crazy. Yeah.
He looked at, he couldn't believe it.
Mm.
Two dead, one alive, and walking around. Well, it's more like stumbling.
Yeah.
He wasn't doing the 100-meter dash or anything like that. So he looks at this, and he's telling this to his family when he got home that night, and we got the story from his daughter, Frankie Dwyer Rowe. And so they said, "Well, Dad, did what did it look like?" And he said, "Well, and he just said, child of the earth. Child of the earth is what they call in the Southwest. It's a Jerusalem cricket. Has a
Mm.
big oval shaped head,
Right.
and that's why they call it a child of the earth, because it looks like a child that's just been born, and
Right.
it's got these markings on the skull because the bones of the head haven't fused yet, so you see these dark markings. And so that this creature had these same dark markings on the. So he said, child of the earth. Well, uh, did you talk to it? Yes, we talked to one another. Well, what did you say? He said, well, we didn't talk to one another like you and I are talking by moving our mouth and our tongue and a voice coming out. He said, we talked to one another in our heads. We were
Mm-hmm.
able to converse with one another in our heads. And well, what did it say? They're giving him the third degree. I do solemnly swear. No, he says, we talked to one another in our heads. And what did you talk about? Well, I was concerned about it because here he is, the ship's crashed, and he's sort of stranded here. And he said, but this creature told me in my head, don't worry about me. I mean, the creature said, don't worry about me. Uh, I accept my fate.
What?
My ship is destroyed. My comrades are dead. And I accept what has happened to me. So don't worry about me. So the creature was actually more worried about the
Yeah.
Dan Dwyer, how he was feeling. So he was trying to put Dan at ease that there's nothing anybody can do, that he accepts what has happened. And that's when the military came up and
Wow.
threatened everybody. So
Yeah. 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 It was quite philosophical. I mean, for him to be like that, it shows a bit of empathy as well,
yes,
which is yeah, that's very interesting. And I mean, just to kind of switch as well, because I'm sure we can speak all day about kind of the testimonies in relation to that as well. As I said before, this work you've done is going to continue. It's kind of like a library, right? I'm sure people look back on it in the future as well. So, but I wanted to know what are you working on like right now? Have you got any new projects coming up? As we know, once you're in this subject, you can't escape it, right? So,
yes,
what's happening with yourself?
yes. Before I check out,
You got
I
to
have three projects not connected at all with UFOs that I'm working on. I might add that Don Schmitt and our last book came out 2 years ago. We feel there's nothing more we can do on Roswell. The
hmm
only thing that's missing, because we have the story, is a piece of physical evidence. So that's the only thing missing. So uh, I might add that I'm still getting some leads on Roswell, and it's sort of re-energized me to start interviewing some more people.
Do it.
All of the original first-handers are dead now, but there
Mm.
are sons and daughters and nieces and nephews who have information, and we got a few of those recently. And I'm thinking, oh my goodness, I thought I was done with this. So, but I'm following through on those. But I have three projects that I'm working on before I check out. And I don't feel that I'll be able to finish all three. But the first one, and I've been laying the groundwork for this for at least 10 years by buying up all the books that I could get on it, was the attack on Pearl Harbor in 1941 by the Japanese. That the story that the American public knows is not really what happened.
Mm.
And I want to do a complete analysis of everything that was written, said about it, what happened, uh, in a chronological sequence, with a conclusion that the story has sort of taken a turn which is not right.
I
And
see.
so that's my first project, is get the truth out about what really happened at Pearl Harbor, that most people can understand. Because there have been shows. There's one show that was done by a British production company in 1989, called the Secret of Pearl Harbor, or something like. Excellent documentary. Excellent documentary. They played it once here in the United States, and and it has the correct conclusion. They never played it again. They
Mm.
never they
Well, that
never
makes sense.
never played it again,
Yeah.
because, oh, we can't say that, we can't
Yeah.
say
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
So I think it's called The Secret of Pearl Harbor, something like that. Anyway, that's one project. The
Would it
second
be a book? You're looking to do a book or something then, or
Yeah,
you
oh
gonna do
yes,
a
a book.
cool?
Yes, that's what I'm used to.
Exciting.
uh I never fancied myself as a writer. In high school I was terrible. And, uh, but it goes to show, if you are really interested in something, you can't do a good job unless you're really
Absolutely.
something that you really are into.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, and that was the problem in school, is I don't want to write a book about who's my favorite actress. Oh, it doesn't.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, that doesn't do it for me.
Yeah. You
The
got to
sec
rise to the challenge, right? You got to rise to the challenge, and when you're passionate about something, it pushes
Yes,
you. It pushes you
it
for sure.
does. And you can't wait to get it out. Get the
Mhm.
story out. The second project is uh, about a mile from my house here in Huntington Valley, Pennsylvania. I've always been, my degrees are in anthropology, but my specialty was physical anthropology, human evolution,
Mm.
primate and human evolution. That was my specialty. I've always been interested in Bigfoot as a possible relic hominid, a primate in somewhere along the line, maybe not direct, but maybe an offshoot of the human line. They call them
Mhm.
hominids, the hominid line. I always felt that because all the stories about Bigfoot, it was bipedal.
Mhm.
It's not quadrupedal, it's bipedal, which makes it a hominid if it's a primate. So uh, one night, my wife, she's on several committees. One is a local historical committee. She comes home one night after a meeting, and she's, "Oh, Tom, I just talked to so and so, and he saw Bigfoot. He had a Bigfoot up. He saw Bigfoot." I said, "You mean in person, not on television like the Travel Channel, where they're always
Yeah.
looking for Bigfoot but never find him?" She said, "Yes." I said, "Well, where did he see it?" About a mile from our house, back down on so and so." Well, I should talk to him. What's his name again? Yeah. So I called him up, said, meet me where you had your episode or your event. So the next day I met him down there, and I said, "Okay, tell me what happened and where it happened." So he started telling me about it, and I'm thinking, this isn't Bigfoot he's telling me about. He said he was one night when he was like 19 years old. they had a softball field there. He was sitting on the bench one evening on this. I don't know, maybe having a smoke. I don't know, but he and another fellow were sitting talking on the one of the benches to this softball field. It was like in a meadow. It was like in a big meadow. And he said, out of my right eye, I could see something moving, and it was something tall, about 9 feet tall, big, uh, but he couldn't see its feet. He said, I could see everything. I couldn't see its feet, and it was not moving, like a biped moves. It was just moving like that.
Mm.
So he said, closed my eyes and shook my head to clear my head to thinking, I'm not seeing this. Let me take another look. So he looked again, and it had moved back to where it had started and started again, going like this. And he says, "Oh my God!" So he tells his buddy, "Let's get it." He says,
Yeah,
he
as you
says,
do.
he said, "Let's get it," because it had passed them. It went past second base down into the bushes where the bushes were, and they went into, "Let's go get it." So they started after it, and they could all of a sudden hear the bushes rustling around, and out comes this thing on four legs. It's not bipedal anymore. It's four legs, and it's after them. So they turn and start running as fast as they can. They could hear it behind them, galloping. It was galloping and growling, and he thought, "Oh, this is it.
Yeah.
This is it." But he turned around, and it was gone. When he turned around, there was nothing there. I said, I'm listening. I said, "Oh my goodness, this is not Bigfoot.
Yeah.
Bigfoot is not a quadruped." He said, "Well, it looked like a dog." He said, the face looked like a dog." I said, "Uh-oh, this sounds like what they call the dog man. It's the dog man." So after that, I interviewed a number of local witnesses who actually had encounters with it themselves, and apparently, this has been going on for decades, not
Wow.
just for decades. And there's even a mention of it in when during colonial times when this thing showed up, and it and it appears. I interviewed about six other people who had episodes with it, not the same episode this fellow had, but other ones, and it's clear to me. Because one of the other ones saw it when it was in the quadrupedal position, but it started coming towards them, and then it got like 50 feet away, and then stood up on two legs, and then went off into. I said, "This is interdimensional. This is interdimensional.
That's
What's
what I was
going
going to
on?"
say. The way it
Yeah,
was moving as well before, you said it sounds like it's, yeah,
it
somewhere else.
was. It's interdimensional. They're seeing the same thing, but one saw it when it was a biped, then a quadruped. Another one saw it when it was a quadruped first, but then it became a biped and just glided off. You know, so
And
this
he
is
said it
where
had a dog. He said it looked like
had a dog face. Yes, yeah, the muzzle. Yeah.
wow.
So that's my second project. I'm going to see that. Oh, we interviewed one fellow. Now this occurred in Pennsylvania, but not locally, but maybe 50, 60 miles north of us. He was fishing, freshwater fishing with his daughter, and he saw in the distance this big tree was moving back, and huge tree, and out jumps this dog man. That's how they described it. He said it was like 12 feet tall. Thank God it didn't see them.
Yeah.
I, maybe 100 yards away, maybe 100 yards away. He said, because if it had seen us, we wouldn't be here today. It was that big, and it had jumped up into a tree going for I don't know, a bird or something like that. And then it had fallen to the ground, dropped about 60 feet, and was on all fours. He says he couldn't believe it. It was like at least 12 feet tall. And then I said, "What did you do?" He said, "I froze." I froze,
Yeah.
and my daughter froze. We didn't make a movement because we if it had seen us, maybe it would have come after us, but it
Was there
went
any
off.
casualties? Was there anything? Was it aggressive to anyone? Because
No, he said there was no one else saw it. It was just the two of them, and it went off into the distance, and they never saw it again. So this is what we have in Pennsylvania, and we have something that shows up on a pretty well. It's irregular, it's nothing irregular, but shows up locally about a mile from where I live, and talking to you right now. Oh, there it is now. No,
just turn the camera around.
yes, but that's my second project.
Cool.
And my third project, Laszlo, escapes me at the moment. It escapes me at the moment.
It's too secret. It will come back to you. It will
It'll
come
come
back.
back to me after we're done, just like that Marine officer's name that
All
was
good.
he was the Stanton Friedman before there was Stanton Friedman.
That's all good. All good.
Major. I
It will
guarantee
come back.
you, it'll come within 30 seconds. Of,
You can email me after, and I'll put
I
it
will
underneath.
email you. Yes,
You can email me after.
he
But
was
it
a
sounds
great.
like I was just going to say. It sounds like you're. It's good to be looking at other things as well because the UFO
Yes,
topic can
I
just
am. I
engulf
am
you.
also interested in King Arthur.
Okay.
Uh, everybody. Oh no, he was from Wales. No, he was from Scotland. No, he was from here and there and everywhere. And oh no, there never really was a king. So I am very interested in King Arthur and Camelot. Uh, and if there's anybody that can straighten this thing out, it's me. Because because I have a sort of a knack as to what is important and what isn't, what is
Mm.
true and what isn't. So, but I don't think I will ever get to that before checking out to where I can do something significant on it. But I do. I'm fascinated by that story.
What's so fascinating about it for you?
The Camelot part.
The
This
camera
was
part, yeah.
the yes the Camelot part, and that such a person existed where everybody was happy, 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 and the whole Camelot story. I just
I see.
too bad it's not like that now, but that has also always fascinated me.
Well, never say never, Tom. Right? You can.
Plus I like I like archaeology, and you
Yeah.
have Glastonbury and a lot of well, this is where they were buried. They're not here now, but we think they're up on that hillside a mile away. Oh, uh, every now and then there's a story about King Arthur, and somebody has come up with a new wrinkle on it. Oh, this is
Mm.
what it really. I said, oh, stop it, stop it. There's the answer is there somewhere, and
Hmm.
I'd like to find that. But that's my third project. I think there's another one that I'm forgetting. Donald E. Kehoe, that was his name. It just
Okay.
Donald E. Kehoe.
There we
Did you
go.
late 1940s, early 1950s? He was the Stanton Friedman of flying saucers, trying to get government. See, it just talking about King Arthur.
It brought it
Uh,
back.
and that was the key to unlock the Donald E. Kehoe.
Got it.
He wrote a number of books. He was an excellent writer. And I recall the show. He was on a show. It was live in those days. He was on a live discussion show with an Air Force officer talking about flying saucers, UFOs. And Kehoe is talking. Then all of a sudden, his mouth is going, but there's no sound coming out. They cut off the sound on him because he had deviated from the script. They gave
Wow.
him a script, and he deviated from the script to give his own, and they cut the mic. But you could see his mouth going like that. So, are they so concerned? I mean, if you've got nothing to hide, there's nothing that anybody can say that will change but they were so we don't want this guy to say. So right there was You know, oh, we don't censor anybody, and here's his mouth going and nothing coming out. Oh,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, I think with this whole UFO movement as well, which would be great to get your take on as well, especially with all the stuff that's going on. It seems like a bit like 4D chess right now. Or people are playing chess
and
anyway. But
and the local, well, we now in the United States we have this new. It's now the 11th or 12th government investigation, believe it or not, of UFOs. This is the
really,
11th or 12th. The Arrow, the all domain anomaly
resolution,
resolution office. How's that for a mouthful? I used to have to write that down. The all domain
purposely
anomaly.
confusing.
Yes, very confusing. And they just published their first report. Now, what the report was supposed to touch on, they spent a year allegedly to investigate all of the government entities, all the contractors, anybody who had anything ever to do with flying saucers, Roswell, going back to 1945. They were supposed to cover that whole area. Well, what they wound up doing is that all they did was they read the Air Force report that the Air Force put out in 1994, 95, that they never went beyond reading the Air Force report that claimed it was Project Mogul, that Project Roswell was Project Mogul. That was their so-called deep dive into the
Hmm.
subject matter. What a joke!
Yeah.
What a joke! So that's where we're at now. The first director of Arrow has resigned and gone to another job, and his big statement was, "We have found nothing that is of non-human origin. In all of the cases that we have ever looked at, there is not one that is of non-human origin." I'm thinking, what are you talking about?
Hmm. Hmm.
Even though those cases that you've seen on the television for the last 3 years, the Tic Tac,
Yeah.
and,
Yeah.
and
One.
those three, those haven't been
I
explained.
know. I know. I know.
And oh well, the ones that are unexplainable, we just think we need more data. That's what it is. We need more data. Oh, you're never going to get there. You're never. That's going to be your fallback position. We need more data rather than saying, well, it's unexplained. So that report has come out. It's a joke. It's like I forget how long it is, 100 and some pages, and they say that Roswell was this Project Mogul,
Yeah.
which once you actually look at Project Mogul, it falls apart like a cheap suit,
Mhm.
sort of
Yeah.
like the soup I'm wearing today. So, um,
But one
so
thing I don't get, Tom, was that I was when I looked through it, I was shocked because I was a bit confused because I'm like, do these guys not understand how social media works? Are they really thinking that this would pass? I cracked a joke about it before. I was like, it's like Sean Kirkpatrick had a crayon in his hand and he had his tongue out and he was just writing stuff. And he's talking about data, but they missed so many key things there. And it was literally like Project Blue Book. I saw it was. It was version 2, or it was
yes,
just a new
version
version of it.
exactly. That's exactly right.
Mm.
That's Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick.
Yeah.
He now works at Oak Ridge, Tennessee, which is under the umbrella of Battelle Memorial Institute, where in 1948 the Wright Patterson Air Force Base gave Battelle Memorial Institute some of the
Okay.
memory metal. The memory
Yeah.
metal.
Yeah.
They gave it to Battelle to say, "Tell us what this stuff is made of, and can you back engineer it?" They gave that to Battelle, and Battelle now the Oak Ridge is part of Battelle. So how can he not know? How
It's
can he
connected.
not know?
Well, he
And
does
I
know. He's a muppet. He's there.
and the
He's a
thing,
puppet.
and the other thing, Laszlo, is that we have these U.S. government representatives and senators. Oh, we want to get them. All they have to do to get their answers is get in an airplane or a car and go to Las Vegas, Nevada,
Mm.
knock on the front door of Bigelow Aerospace, and say, "I'm with the government. Let me in. I want to see what you have with regarding UAPs, as I now call them." They will have their answers. That's where all the stuff is. Bigelow Aerospace, unless Bigelow has in the last year or so quickly got it somewhere else. But that's where all that stuff was. They were working on trying to slow down. We got this from they answered a FOIA request of
Yeah.
ours. What are they working on? They're working on cloaking invisibility, making things invisible, shrinking the speed of time, or the
Mm,
speed of light, trying to slow down the speed. Now, where would they get ideas like that?
I wonder. Yeah.
Shrinking time, space, seeing if they can make things invisible. Where would they get those ideas? And that came to us from the Defense Intelligence Agency. We have it in writing. And Sean Kirkpatrick gets out there and says, when we already know in writing from the DIA, the Defense Intelligence Agency, that it's something else. And so whenever I go onto a show, I say, "Dear Representative, whatever his name is, who's in there, get in your car, go to Las Vegas, Nevada, knock on the front door of Bigelow Aerospace, and you will have your answer." No
Mm,
one's done it.
yeah.
No one has done it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So they don't. The thing is, Laszlo, they don't want to know. At
Is that
least
what
in
you
my
think it is? Is that what? So it's a good connection actually in terms of wanting to know like why it's obviously hidden behind a lot of red tape and there's a lot of politics involved with it as well. But what do you think the big pushback? Why are they doing this? Is it because do you think they actually
I
care? Yeah.
I understand from the gentleman who gave me the FOIA request and the response that there are people in the Defense Department and some senators and Congress people who feel. And what's his name ran into this? The Luis Elizondo. You remember
Mhm.
Luis?
Yeah.
He
Yeah.
said
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
he said the same thing. There are people who see this in a religious
Mm-hmm.
context, and they think that all this UFO stuff is demonic. I'm not making
Oh
this
yeah.
up,
Yeah. Yeah.
but there
Yeah.
are
Yeah.
people in the Defense Department and the government who think all this UFO stuff coming and going invisible, that's something demonic, and so they push back and they vote against going forward on this stuff because if whoever's looking at this, they always come to some point where they reach a stone wall and can't get past it. And I didn't believe it at first, but Elizondo mentioned the same thing, that he ran into it. And the fellow I'm working with, who included me in his receipt of the FOIA request, he said that he ran into the same thing.
Interesting.
They think the UFO. They put this whole phenomenon into a religious context, and they don't want to. They don't want it to be revealed. They don't want it to go any further. They want to stop it. All investigations, all talk, because they believe it's uh, uh,
Bad? Do you think that
bad.
in terms
Oh
of
yeah,
evil?
demonic, evil. Yeah, evil. Yes.
Do you think it's also down to? I mean, only because you mentioned the word religious, like that's a form of that's a movement itself, right? That's bringing. I mean, whether it's bad or good, I'm not sure on the motivations and stuff like that myself. I'm sure there's good and bad in every area of life.
Because there's they don't. To me, all these investigations that they've had, they don't really want to know the answer.
Yeah.
Who's ever conducting, they don't want to know, or they
Yes.
just get frustrated at whoever's pushing back on this, that they just give up.
Yeah. Are you saying that from the perspective of the government? Because, for example, I never with Arrow, and I think it was made even more apparent that we're never going to get disclosure or the truth from any kind of government
Right.
related institution because they're going to be, controlling the narrative. But if maybe through whistleblowers or some sort of catastrophic disclosure, as people call it, we
It's
may force their hand.
yes. So what will cause the this to come out into the open? Do you remember the movie the Day the Earth Stood Still
Yeah,
with
I
Mike?
watch it with my dad. Yeah, it's one of the first ones.
The flying saucer landing on this, and everybody, it has to be something like that,
You think? Yeah.
where they can't say, you don't see that there, you don't see, because right now everything is they're able to keep things in secret in
Mm-hmm.
Battelle Memorial Institute, at Wright Patterson, at Bigelow Aerospace, maybe at Lockheed Martin. All those government contractors have it now, because private organizations do not have to respond to the Freedom of Information requests.
Mm.
The government has to respond, but the private companies like Lockheed or Bigelow and et cetera, they don't have to answer uh, FOIA requests. So it's all in private hands now.
Yeah,
So
which was a decision made, and it's not really worked out now because they can hide behind that curtain.
yes,
Yeah,
yes,
which is another thing. So, are you feeling positive, or because there has been movement, right? And there's definitely been a transformation in regards to the public's perception of it, right? I can see there's more media and stuff, but we've got social media now as well, so there's been a bigger rise around it. But how are you feeling overall in regards to the movement?
well, the I never thought it would get this far, but
Mm,
it was the Elizondo videos, the Tic
hmm
Tac, the gimbal, and the Go Fast three. That's what triggered the current interest on the part of the public. Uh, was those were those three videos, because they're unexplainable. They're
hmm hmm
unexplainable, and so I never thought it would get this far. But as far as the government is concerned, they created this. First, it was the UAP task force. Then they changed the name to something else. Now it's the Arrow. It was. Oh, I'm leaving out the advanced. What was it? The Advanced Aerospace
ATIP. Yeah,
ATIP.
yeah,
ATIP.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
you got Arrow, ATIP, and UAP. See, they just, your mind just goes spinning, and but where it is now, I couldn't tell you. But they did publish this first report. I have a copy of it, and it's just, I can't use a bad word on the
It's a safe
TV.
space. It's bullshit. It's bullshit. It's
Yes,
bullshit.
yes, yes. And so I'm thinking, my God, who do they think? Did they think we're really that dumb? Because we have the history going all the way back to 1947 is huge with great
Mm,
cases. Well, we don't have enough data that we can't plug that information into our sensors, into our algorithms. We have to. So right now they're only accepting cases from the military.
yeah, yeah,
They're
yeah, yeah.
only accepting cases from the military. If one this afternoon after this show, well, you're already in the afternoon, but once this show is over, if a UFO comes and lands on your head, you won't be able to report it to the government, U.S. government, because it has to come through a sensor like
Mm,
radar or something like that, gun camera, something like that. So it's just an absolute joke. So.
yeah. I think
But it
in many
has to
ways,
be it has to be something like the Day the Earth Stood Still.
yeah, we're looking for it to
White
land.
House lands on the White House lawn, or at number 10 Downing Street, it lands on the roof there. Uh, so something
Well,
like that.
we're definitely not going to get it through the government. That's become even more apparent now because, especially with David Grush coming forward, and there was opportunities
Yeah,
there, and we've seen we've seen the pushback, the amendment, the Schumer Rounds amendment, the way that got gutted. There's definitely it's not going to come through them, and it might have to come from a catastrophic route. And I was on the side that maybe it might be a bit of public shock. But then I've come to the conclusion that we can adapt, we can survive, we're good at that
oh, for
stuff.
sure.
Yeah,
It, Today is not like 1947.
it's true.
Because 1947, you're still close to the 1938 War of the Worlds
Mm,
radio show with Orson Welles, where the East Coast in the United States went into a panic because of
mhm.
this. Mercury, was it the Mercury Theater of the Air, Orson Welles. So, but today most people accept that there's other life in the universe.
Yeah.
Statistically, there's other life in the universe, and they are accepting of it. I don't think it would cause oh, they can clean. Oh, well, that's nice, but there'd be no panic. There would be just, I think, relief that they finally have admitted it, and I think there'll be a relief. And then the second thing, well, what can they do for us?
That
So
would be
what can they do for us?
it's,
So
it's the next human question. Do you obviously you're involved in the UFO sector. I'm sure you're very well connected. Have you heard of anything like on the horizon, or is there anything do you think that could help push this, or do you think it's just going to go back
oh
into the
well, they
bottle?
the thing is, they had these whistleblowers. David Grush was
Mm,
a whistleblower, but even he didn't give you any of the real, okay, who has the stuff, where is it, what is it. Even he withheld that information. He says, well, I can tell you that in a secret session. Well,
Skiff.
we the public deserves a right to know this secret stuff.
Mm.
And so my hope is that somehow David Grush or some whistleblower would come clean on what I've just told you on your show today. That the as far as the last I know is that all this stuff was at Bigelow Aerospace in Las Vegas, Nevada, and this is what they're working on. Get somebody to go there, take a camera and go there, see what they have. But they want,
Storm Bigelow Aerospace, everyone. I'm joking. Don't do that.
yes, yes.
Yeah.
Call Robert Bigelow in before the committee. Call him, see if he will tell you the truth.
Yeah. I
You know,
think a
he
lot of
was
these
a
guys.
he was a the reason he got all that stuff was that he was friends with the late Senator Harry Reid, and Harry
Mhm.
Reid was involved. He was interested in UFOs, so he proposed that they established a fund, passed a bill that this is now 2007 to 2012. $22 million went to Bigelow Aerospace to conduct all this research. That's how Bigelow got it. He was good friends with Harry Reid. That's how it worked. And so I get frustrated because that's where the focus is, and nobody. Bigelow, who is that? Uh, it's just it boggles my mind because they can have the answers. A lot of the answers are there. The wreckage, the bodies we last heard, the 5 bodies from Roswell, on a deathbed dying declaration from one of the high officers at Wright Patterson. Uh, he said that they were located at Area 52, which is in Utah. The proving grounds. See, now I forgot there's it's like Area 51, but when
Mhm.
Area 51 in Nevada became too well known, they moved everything to Area 52 at the Dugway Proving Grounds. Okay, and World War II was like they practiced their bombing and all that sort of stuff there. So it's very secret. That's where the last we heard. That's where the 5 Roswell bodies were stored. Okay, now that I've mentioned it, they'll probably move it. See, but like that, and uh, so it's frustrating that, and this came from a high-ranking officer at Wright Patterson Air Force Base, who was in charge of the Foreign Technology Division, where all the Roswell stuff had been taken from Roswell to Wright Patterson. Went to the Foreign Technology Division. So, and it was really foreign because during World War II, they back engineered the German aircraft and the Japanese
Mhm.
aircraft. And in the Cold War, the Russian MiGs, they would back engineer them at Wright Patterson. So when this really foreign stuff came in from time travelers, that's where it went. And So ultimately, it went to Area 51, then to Area 52. And when the FOIA requests started coming in, they moved them to private contractors, most notably Bigelow Aerospace, very close to Area 51. So,
Yeah, they know where. I think it's mentioned been a couple of times. All these defense companies, Bigelow, Lockheed, these type of places. That's where they
yep.
are. But now it's getting through the red tape to even get that. And then the opportunity to do that was through the Schuman
Well,
Amendment, right?
if they had any intestinal fortitude, Laszlo, if they had any intestinal fortitude, they would go right to Bigelow Aerospace and knock on the front door. Okay, you have some stuff here that we've given you to work on. I want to see it.
Yeah.
But it's like, where Bigelow, is that spelled with a B? It just
It's
boggles the
frustrating.
mind.
I
It's
get
very,
it. Yeah, especially. I mean, obviously you're in the US as well, right? This is your government. This is how they're behaving. Right? I'm in the UK, so I can be frustrated at it globally, as it's a global phenomenon. But
oh
like,
yeah.
if you know, if I was located in the US and that's where I live, and that was my democracy, and that's what was ongoing behind it. It's a new level of frustration, so I can completely appreciate that, especially considering you've dedicated a big portion of your life, you know, to
Yeah.
investigating one of the biggest incidents, and then you're seeing this happening.
It's still the granddaddy of all UFO cases,
It is.
because
It is.
it's the most thoroughly investigated, and it has the most uh, facets to it. You got the wreckage, the bodies, the time travel, there's so much to this case, plus hundreds of witnesses, hundreds of first and second hand witnesses.
You got some more now as well, right? Which
We
I'm
got some more, and I've got my base. I have it right here, and there's a lot of. I'm gonna. Oh, they see. I always get tangled up here.
that's all
Whenever
right.
I want to be. How did I get so tangled up here? Okay. Well, anyway, I was going to show you this. This is our the base yearbook from 1947. There's 2,000 pictures in here of airmen and officers and what
Wow.
have you. And I have it turned to a page that somebody I was looking for, who actually is in one of the latest witnesses that
Wow.
someone gave us. Is see where the arrow is?
Yeah.
That's who I was looking for, and by golly, he's in the yearbook. So that has re-energized me
Wow.
to try to find some um, relatives, son, daughter, nephews, nieces of this fellow, to see if he told her or him what he was doing at Roswell, and
That's
because
fascinating.
the information we got was sketchy, and this fellow, by the way, is the only witness that we have that uh, has given us information of having looked inside the craft.
Wow.
All the other witnesses, it was egg shaped. This fellow actually was at the crash site that had the capsule, the egg shaped capsule with the two dead ones and the one walking around. He actually was an MP that guarded that site, but he actually got to, look inside the craft. And we got a sketchy report from this third party as to what he said, but I want to find a family member who has more details than we were given. But he did look inside. He's the only witness in all the hundreds that we have that has described what the inside of the ship
Are you
looked.
able to share a little bit about what was inside? What he said?
Yes, yes. What was told to us was that. See, now I'm. What is the problem here?
I don't
Uh,
know. My internet's struggling as well. I don't know why. I've got fiber optics
it was.
apparently. It's the government. They're trying to stop this right now.
He said the information we were given was that inside there were no seats or anything like that. It was very, very empty looking, but he described it having several flat screen, like we have flat screen TVs, but there's several flat screen things like that. And we had already known from other witnesses that some of the wreckage contained these little thin wires like fiber optics.
Mm.
Okay. He said the walls were covered with these little thin fiber optic type wires, and that the whole inside of this craft had a violet hue to it. The whole like the whole inside was like had a violet hue to it, and that's all that we have so far.
Wow. Okay. Interesting. Well, I mean, that is, I can see why that re-energized you.
Yes, I want to
So
get somebody who can give us more information about it, because when you get it
absolutely.
from a third party or fourth party, it's not always. They don't always know what they're talking about, but they're not as detailed
Yeah,
oriented.
absolutely. Well, look, good luck with that. And yeah, but look, I think we can leave it down. I wanted to yeah, thank you once again. It's been a great conversation, Tom. There's been lots we went through. Before we finish up from your side, is there anything you wanted to mention? Is there anything else on your mind? Here's an open space for you.
No, no, like I said, I'm re-energized now, and what and how we do it, and what I'm going to do is that book I just showed you. I'm going to go through that chapter and try to pick out a number of what we call idiosyncratic names. These are names that uh, there would only be like a few
Hmm.
names like that, and like not like Brown or Smith or Jones, but something like Ski, uh, that you might have a chance of finding a very small number of people with a last name like something very idiosyncratic. So then what we would do is we'd call them up,
Hmm.
and this is how we've done it for years. Is Normally when we get a lead that says, "Oh, you want to talk to this fella, this guy," well, it turns out they don't know anything, or it's just something we already know. Most of the stuff that has moved our case forward has been from people we never expected to have information like that, and that's the way it's been. They, these golden leads turn out to be not golden at all, but
I find that as well. Yeah,
yes,
it's weird. I think it's life. Life's a bit weird like that when you don't expect it. Then when you're like,
yes,
ah,
it's when
I'll
you
follow
don't
it up.
expect it.
Let's see what happens. And then you're like, whoa. And then when you're like, oh, this is
Yes,
it. You go for it. You're like, no.
no, yeah, that's exactly how it goes.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
So,
Super. Well, listen, keep up the fantastic work. Like you've done some super stuff for the industry as well in terms of getting knowledge around this case as well. And good luck with the other projects as well. Um, Ladies and gentlemen, listening viewers, do check out Tom's work. It's extremely relevant still. And Tom, we look forward to hearing some more information later on down the line about your new stuff as well. Okay.
all right, all right,
Super.
nice to be with you, Laszlo.
Cool, man. Take care. Speak soon.